everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. Today's episode comes to you courtesy of my incredible patrons. Once a month, patrons vote on what commander they want to see in an upcoming episode, and the commander that gets most votes wins. And the commander for this month is the Cabbage Merchant, a really fun commander, a 2/2 human citizen for 3 mana in green. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, we get a food token, which of course is an artifact that has 2. Tap, sacrifice this token, you gain 3 life. On top of that, whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, you sacrifice a food token. That being said, you can tap 2 untap foods you control to add 1 mana of any color. So this is a commander that can give us an absurd amount of tokens throughout the game, an absurd amount of food that of course we can sacrifice ourselves for some life gain if we want that, but also we can just kind of store up those food tokens to tap them for an insane amount of mana. So again, getting mana in a different way. Now, of course, there is the risk of losing some more food tokens if opponents are attacking us and they get through. That being said, we've got plenty of other ways to make plenty of other tokens and, well, plenty of other ways to deter opponents from actually attacking us in the first place. But yeah, big mana, big amounts of tokens, big wins for us, a really fun commander. Let's jump into the deck tech after I remind you that there is, of course, the deck tech link, the card list link in the description below. Now let's jump into the tactics. Let's start things off in a big way with Peregrine Took, a 2/3 halfling citizen for 3 mana in green that says, if one or more tokens be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead. And by sacrificing 3 food tokens, we draw a card. Now, this is one where we can utilize those tokens in a different way if we want to draw some cards. If we're desperate, we can definitely do that. That being said, yeah, being able to just get an additional food token every single time we make any kind of a token is absolutely crazy. So good because, well, it is essentially, in most cases, again, when it comes to like repeat ways like our commander of making a token, it's doubling up food tokens in that kind of a way. Now, if we're making a lot of tokens at once, obviously it's just one additional one, but still, getting extra food tokens, again, makes extra value and also means extra mana for this kind of a commander. Next up, Killer Service, a great card as well. Enters the battlefield, we get a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents we have, so typically in Commander, again, 3. So yeah, 3 costs for 3 foods, that's quite great. Beginning of your end step, you may pay 2 and sacrifice a token. If you do, you get a 4/4 Rhino. So being able to essentially go, hey, you know what, I'm going to transition some things away. I'm going to be making some, well, creatures out of these so I can become a little more threatening. That's great. And if not, just a good way to start off that food token production. Moving on, Quina, a 2/3 that costs 3 mana in green. If one or more tokens are created in your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 green frog are created instead. By paying 2 and sacrificing a frog, we get a counter on Quina. Again, getting these frogs out there, it doesn't really matter what kind of a creature type it is, but being able to just go, hey, you know what, we're going wide. Essentially, we're making more and more tokens. We're making an army, which of course, again, makes it harder for opponents to get through on us, and eventually makes it so that we're quite deadly. We'll talk about some other ways to do that here in the future, though. Then there's Harass the Endless Web. When our opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, we get a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Again, even more defense right out there because we're able to, again, block flyers, essentially, which is quite nice with that reach. That being said, being able to just flood the board with tokens is a great way, again, to make ourselves, again, a more defensive beast, and also a way to eventually make ourselves more threatening. And finally, Feasting Troll King, a 7/6 Troll Noble, Vigilance and Trample. As when it enters the battlefield, if you cast from your hand, you make a 3 food tokens. And on top of that, well, it's going to be really hard to permanently get rid of this one because at any point, well, during our turn, we can sacrifice 3 foods and then bring it right back from our graveyard to the battlefield. So this 7/6 can just keep coming back again and again and again and be an absolute terror on the battlefield for our opponents. Next up, let's talk about some big mana ways to make some big amounts of tokens. First up, for the common good, XX and a green for the sorcery. Create X tokens or copies of target token you control. Then tokens you control gain indestructible until your next turn. You gain 1 life for each token you control. So yeah, a giant way to gain a lot of life and make an insane amount of tokens. A good amount of the time, just a lot more food for us, being able to just have for even more mana eventually. Or again, a game-ending play potential. If you have a giant token in play, make a lot of those. Speaking of big tokens, Gelatinous Genesis. Create XX green ooze creature tokens. Yeah, we can put a lot of mana into this and have a massive army of oozes. Speaking of which, Hydra Broodmaster, very similar to that one. A 7/7 Hydra, though, that has Monstrosity for XX and a green. Monstrosity X, I should say. comes monstrous crit XXX green Hydra creature tokens onto the battlefield. A massive army of Hydras can be quite scary. Speaking of which, Rampaging Baloths. This one is 6 mana for a 6/6 with trample. Whenever a land enters, we get a 4/4. We got plenty of ways to ramp, including our foods, of course, but also even more ways to get lands into play as well. Tovolar's Huntmaster, a 6/6 that when it enters, we get 2/2/2s. But that being said, it flips over into a 7/7, enters or attacks, we get 2/2/2 wolves. And of course, we can pay to have other wolves fight creatures we don't control, so it can be some removal as well. Avenger of Zendikar, very simple, very effective. A 5/5 ETB, make a 0/1 plant for each land you control, and then landfall. Land comes into play, get a counter on each plant you control. So yeah, a way to essentially make a massive army, and then of course, grow that army over time. Giant Adaphage can definitely explode into an army as well. He's 7/7 trample, deals combo to your player, you get a token's copy of it. So being able to essentially just keep going and going and going and going and going with this exact same card, just kind of multiplying again, just going just absolutely the widest you possibly can with a creature. It's absolutely insane. Hornet Queen, though, a 2/2 insect with flying and death touch for 7 mana. ETBs, we make 4 1/1s of flying and also death touch. Again, some great blockers for us, being able to just sit out there and say, yeah, if you attack me, I can take out whatever you send at me, essentially, with that death touch. Threefold Thunderhulk, though, a 0/0, enters with 3 counters on it. When it enters or attacks you, make a number of gnomes equal to its power, and then you can sacrifice the artifact to get a counter on it. So yeah, we can sacrifice, again, plenty of artifacts. We've got a lot of options out there, including food if we need to. That being said, this can keep making us an army again and again and again. Samuro Convergence, speaking of which, creatures with flying can attack you or planeswalkers you control, so a great way to protect us, which is absolutely huge. And of course, at the beginning of our end step, we make a 5/5. So again, make an army and also protect ourselves at the exact same time. Verdant Force, fantastic way at making a massive army over time. Beginning of each upkeep, again, not just our own, every single upkeep, make a 1/1 Saproling. So again, with this 7/7, throughout the game, we can make 4 creature tokens with each trip around the table. It can be absolutely massive. Phyrexian Triniform at 9 mana. When it dies, well, this 9/9 is going to make us 3 3/3s. You can also encore it out of our graveyard, which is absolutely amazing. Again, getting a copy for each opponent, and then sacrificing it again, and then, well, making again 9 3/3s basically from that. So, yeah, an army in a bottle. Finally, World Spine Worm, a 15/15 with trample. When this one dies, we make 3 5/5s with trample, and then, of course, it gets shuffled into our library from our graveyard when it hits anywhere. So, essentially, being able to just go, hey, you know what, we have a 15/15, and when you take it out, well, we still get to replace that essentially and split it into 3. Moving on, outside of tokens, we've got other big mana ways to make big splashes in the game. First up, Genesis Wave, X, green, green, green. Reveal the top X cards of your library, put any number of permanent cards with mana value X less from among them on the battlefield, and put all cards revealed this way that weren't put on the battlefield into your graveyard. A massive way to make a massive splash again. Just a mana sink for us that just gives us an insane amount of things off the top of our library. Have a lot of fun with this one. Soul New Phyrexia, speaking of fun, a 6/6 with trample for 6 mana by paying 5. All of our permanents gain indestructible until end of turn, and by paying 5 we can exile it, and then we can also do the exact same thing. So whether it's in our graveyard or on the battlefield, especially on the battlefield, we can get a lot of repeat, well, ways to protect our entire team. Thunderfoot Baloth, though, a 5/5 with trample that says, hey, if you get your commander in play, it's going to get +2/+2, another creature can get +2/+2, and have trample as well. A great way to pump our entire team. And again, with a go-wide strategy like this one, with a big mana go-wide strategy, we can do some really splashy, amazing things with something like this. And speaking of which, that trample can really come in handy with Preposterous Proportions. Sorcery for 7 mana. Creature control get +10/+10 and gain vigilance on upturn. So again, even our smallest creatures, even let's say those 0/1 plants with the Avenger of Zendikar, if we haven't any other lands come into play until a 0/1, well, now they're 10/11s. Again, the biggest creatures on the board, they've got vigilance, we can swing with them, and we can still keep them back. And of course, if we have any way to get trample, any way to get through, our opponents are going to be dead meat. Next up, Value Town. Yeah, these cards are going to be great at providing some value throughout the game, or just immediate value at once. This one, though, during your turn, artifacts you control are foods, each of their types. You can pay 2 and, of course, tap and sacrifice them. So again, some of those other ways to make artifacts that we talked about too earlier are great at, well, essentially, well, giving us value with this too. Level 2 is going to be when you gain life for the first time each turn, create a 3/3 green raccoon creature token. And level 3, whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, get a counter on each creature you control. So again, this is a great way to essentially, well, make even more creatures and also, well, go tall as well with those creatures over time. Boomy's Beast Lecture. Create a food token, then Earthbend X is twice the number of food you control. So yeah, we can make an absolutely massive land creature with this one that can be the biggest threat on the board. Inspiring Statuary, a great way to utilize those foods in a different way. Non-artifact spells you cast have improvise, meaning that our artifacts can help cast them. Again, our foods are artifacts. And we can actually essentially just reduce the cost of those, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. Moving on, we got Halcyon Emerald Archrood. By paying 1 until end of turn, target token control becomes a green bear creature with base power -4, 4 to other colors and types. So we can actually turn our foods into bears, which can then take our opponents out quite effectively. Speaking of taking our opponents out, Darksteel Juggernaut. Yeah, this is going to be a great way to do so. A star Juggernaut with indestructible for 5 mana. Power types are each equal to the number of artifacts you control and attacks each combat if able. So yeah, this is going to be one of the biggest creatures, if not the biggest creature on the board. Very hard to stop with that indestructibility. It's going to keep swinging again and again and again. Finally, Fanger and Rodder, our life totals become monstrous as well. A 5/5 beast for 6 mana. Artifact put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. Again, any artifact, any graveyard, including, well, tokens do count because they technically do hit the graveyard. So yeah, if we happen to sacrifice a food, let's just say, well, that's going to be 8 life in total. Or yeah, just any other way that we have artifacts hitting graveyards. Next up, though, let's talk about some ways to dig down into our deck. First up, Idol of Oblivion. Cost 2, tap, draw a card. Only if you can create a token this turn, though. I mean, that's going to happen all the time. By paying 8, we tap and sacrifice it to make a 10/10, and yeah, it can be a great token to help us take out our opponents. Next up, Revive the Shire. A very simple way to bring a permanent card back from our graveyard to our hand, and also make a food token. Seren Steel Seeker, though. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under control of the top card of your library, if it's a land card, you may reveal it in your hand. If you don't, you can put that card, well, you can put it right in your graveyard. So being able to essentially go, hey, you know what, let's get some extra value out of the, well, artifacts that are coming into play, including our food tokens, can be absolutely great. Speaking of which, Trail of Crumbs. Create a food token when this enters. On top of that, whenever you sacrifice a food, you can pay 1. If you do the top 2, with a permanent card from among them, put in your hand. The rest of them on your library in random order. Bristlebud Farmer, a 5/5 trampler for just 4 mana. Enters the battlefield to make 2 food tokens. On top of that, whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice a food. If you do, mill 3, bring a permanent back from among them into your hand. Return of the Wild Speaker, a great way to draw down into our deck. Draw cards equal the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Here we talked about quite a few powerful creatures that we're going to be having. On top of that, we could also just say, you know what, instead, let's pump our entire team +3/+3 until end of turn at instant speed. Shamanic Revelation, draw a card for each creature control for 5 mana. Yeah, again, we talked about so many ways to go so wide, draw an insane amount. And of course, if we've got some powerful creatures, gain 4 life for each creature control of power 4 or greater. Collective Unconscious, very simple, very effective. 6 mana, draw a card for each creature you control. And then finally, Donglade Region, an 8/8 elk for 7 mana. Enters the battlefield to become the Monarch. Yeah, again, the Monarchy can be something that's very good for us with this kind of a deck. And then it says, as long as you have the Monarch, permanent control of Hexproof, a great way to protect our things, and of course, draw down into our deck with even more cards. Moving on, let's talk about some removal, though, and some player removal with Hurricane, well, and also creature removal, too. X damage each creature flying and each player. This can be a great way to end the game for us. Again, we've got a massive amount of mana with this deck, and of course, we've got ways to gain an insane amount of life. So, if we have the most life, and we've got a way to pump enough mana into this, take all the players out except for us, well, we win the game. Pest Infestation, though, a great way to take out artifacts and enchantments. Create twice XX11 black-green creature tokens with, hey, when they die, you gain a life. Okay, those little pests can really help us out throughout the game. Rampage of the Clans. Throw artifacts and enchantments for each permanent destroyed this way. Well, its controller makes a 3/3 Centaur creature token. This can be a great way to, right before our turn, pivot our strategy. Our opponents think that we're like a big mana, you know, okay, food token, all right. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, you guys are all wide open. All right, let's just take out all the artifacts and all the enchantments. Now, all of a sudden, I have the most creatures in play by far, and I'll take you out. Thorn Mammoth. Speaking of taking creatures out, a 6/6 elephant with trample. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield to control, Thorn Mammoth fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Yeah, our creatures coming into play, we're going to have a lot of those. Again, we have a lot of token production, a lot of creature token production. Take out a lot of things with this. Azorius Predation, speaking of which, for each of your opponents, well, hey, all their creatures are going to get taken out by 4/4s. Because you ever hear that. For each creature opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures. Yeah, being able to have our, well, new army come in and take out all the medium-sized and small creatures and then stick around, that's going to be absolutely incredible. And of course, well, some Eldrazi can help us out too. An 8 Eldrazi Ulamog's Crush for 8 mana, Annihilator 2 attacks each combat fable. That's going to be quite nice. Arzen of Kozilek, get another Annihilator 2, but this one's a 10/9, and when we cast it, bring back a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then the big biggest Annihilator of them all for us, Pathrazor of Ulamog, 9/9 for 11, Annihilator 3. Again, when it attacks, the defending player sacrifices 3 permanents. Ouch. And of course, it can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, so they have to put a lot of things in its way to try to stop it. Finally, let's talk about ramp. First up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. Pay 2 tap sacrifice, get a basic land in a play tapped. Gilded Goose enters the battlefield, make a food token, and we can tap and sacrifice food to add 1 mana of any color, or we can pay 2 and tap to make a food token. Many Partings, a great way to, well, get a land out of our library, get it into our hand, and also make a food token as well. Wild Growth, a great turn 1 play, costs a single green mana, enchant a land taps for additional green mana. Fertile Ground basically does the exact same thing for this deck, but at 2 mana. Rampant Growth, cost 2, they're the OG ramp card basically, go get a base land and play tapped. Secure Triad Elder, Steve, yeah sorry Steve, we're going to be sacrificing you to the exact same thing. Unlucky Cabbage Merchant, a 2/2, enters, make a food token. Whenever we sacrifice a food, go get that basic land on the battlefield tapped, and if we do that, this one goes at the exact bottom card of our library. Cultivate, go get 2 basics, 1 goes into play tapped, and 1 goes into our hand. Layer of Cultivation, basically the exact same thing, but we can also sacrifice a non-token green creature instead of paying the spell's cost. Harvest Season, yeah, this one can be absolutely massive, basically getting all the lands out of our deck. Search your library for X basic land cards, X the number of tapped creatures you control, and put those cards on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. Again, with a go-wide token army, you can get an insane amount with this later in the game. Overgrowth, you can enchant one of our lands, and that land taps for additional 2 green mana. Search for Tomorrow, great turn 1 play as well, spend 2 for a single green mana. Search life for a base land card, put on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Migration Path costs 4, it gets 2 basics into play, tap, then we shuffle, and we can cycle it away for 2. Knight of the Sweet's Revenge, this one is so good in this deck. Enters the battlefield to make a food token, and all foods you control have will tap, add a green. Yeah, that means that all of a sudden, now our foods are basically lands. They essentially just tap for 1 instead of having to tap 2 for 1 instead. We can also pay 7 and sacrifice it. Creature control get +X till have turn. X number of foods you control, activate only as a sorcery. A great way to finish our opponents off as well. Yeah, an amazing card for this deck. A Realm Reborn, a great card as well, costs 6. Other opponents you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Yeah, again, being able to essentially double the effectiveness of every single one of our foods, that's insane. And of course, now all of our creatures can tap for mana too. Regal Behemoth, a great way to add a lot of mana into the equation as well. A 5/5 dinosaur trample for 6 mana. Enters the battlefield, become the Monarch. Again, yet another great way to dig down into our deck. And of course, tap a land for mana while you're the Monarch, you get an additional 1 mana of any color. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.